This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
Well, getting set for a fun end of the college football season, and also Legends Luncheon in 2 Fridays over at Arizona State University. So pleased to be joined by an Arizona State legend in studio, one of my favorite athletes to ever put on a jersey that I've watched here in the Valley of the Sun. DJ Foster, watched him at Swirl High, watched him at Arizona State, watched him play for the Arizona Cardinals. There's so much to talk about. But first of all, it's great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good, brother. It's so good to see you. Thanks for having me here. Beautiful studio. And yeah, you've seen the whole journey. That's fun for me too. So much of the in-Valley, in-state, Valley media, like you guys have been on this journey with me. So it's fun to reminisce and talk about the process with you guys because you guys were right there with it.
I mean, I was very fortunate enough to be the sideline reporter your junior year when you won state, and I caught you in the handshake line.
Yeah,
pulled you out of the handshake line.
Can I get you 1 second?
Yeah, just hold on 1 second. 1 second. So I mean, that's where it started for me.
Yeah.
If I had told you, go back and talk to that kid, junior in high school, about to be a senior in high school, that one day you would be part of the Arizona State Legends Luncheon, what would you have told me?
I wouldn't have believed you. Honestly, I mean, my growing up in the Valley, I mean, I always had my eye on ASU, but I'd be lying to you if I was some diehard Sun Devil. I really wasn't, you know. But over the years, just watching players kind of go through their process here, seeing, you know, the Todd Heaps, Terrell Suggs, some of the guys that we were talking about, even guys like a Jamal Miles, you know, guys that were kind of later.
Is he still playing for the Rattlers,
he still
by
is.
the way?
I think he's on year like 15 for the Rattlers. It's incredible. He comes to practice every once in a while, and I'm like, how are you still doing this?
And he can still run like a 4.3.
Absolutely. He looks the same as he did in college. It's incredible. So kudos to him. He's kept his body in shape. But no, I really didn't. And then just as I got closer to the process of high school, to the commitment date, you know, just really thinking about what this community is and what it has meant to me throughout my high school career, and, you know, making that decision. I definitely wouldn't have thought, though, being here talking about a Legends Luncheon at all.
Well, and you know, I that's kind of where the story started for me. Junior year in high school, saw you your senior year in high school. You had 10 touchdowns in one game. We were just looking at the record books. I don't know if you saw a kid from Goldwater ran for 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. So we were comparing it to your night
crazy.
like that, and you think about having your name there in the record books. What does it mean to still be in the record books as a high school football player at Saguaro?
It means a lot, especially with how much talent is starting to come to this valley.
Isn't it crazy?
I mean, every year I see some 5-star this, you know. So it's awesome for me to see just the valley and just high school football and how it's blown up over the years. It's cool to see where it started and kind of where it's kind of ended up. I mean, Christian Kirks, the Byron Murphys, guys that went through Saguaro, you know, Christian Kirks all over their record books too. So it was fun to be a part of him and that process with him. I mean, Bijan Robinson, all these great players that have just coming out of the valley, and I'm arguing with guys all the time, especially now. I got Texas guys, California guys. I say, hey, look, just take a look at the players that we have come out here. I mean, we definitely do represent talent-wise.
Is there another high school that you know of that has had 3 guys playing for the same team at the same time? I actually have that picture somewhere on my computer.
Yep.
You, Byron, and Christian. How special was that?
It was crazy, and it was just surreal how it kind of all played out. You know, them both getting drafted there, to be on the field at the same time, and just to see. I remember watching them in like Pop Warner, you know, so just to see their development and where they come and just how they're progressing now. I texted Christian the other day, you know, he had a rough injury, so that was sad to see, but just to see him persevere and just the mindset and just the kind of human being he is. Same with Byron Murphy in Minnesota, just to see him on his second stint and just making plays. It's so fun to watch those guys continue to thrive.
Yeah, laid the groundwork for sure for Arizona high school football. It was special. I still want to line up and play that Chaparral game.
No, I really run it back.
Yeah,
that was tough. I still hear about that.
I was on the call, and the JV ran out, and we're like, why is DJ on the sidelines?
But that was the birth of Christian Kirk. Remember,
You're right.
Christian Kirk played that game, and everyone's like, who is this kid?
Did you know who he was?
Oh, I knew who he was,
Yeah.
but it was fun to see him kind of put his talents out there on display like that. And I obviously work with Coach Charlie Regal every day now.
Oh, my gosh. Do you hear about that all the time?
Every day. Once a week, I'll hear some sly remark. He'll be walking by, and he's like, hey, you know, we whipped that butt of yours. So I'm like, yeah. So I'm always pleading my case and arguing with him, but it's fun. I mean, Coach Mond, Coach Aguano, you got three of the best, arguably, high school coaches in the state of Arizona, you know, history. So it's fun to just hear their stories and their mindset and views.
How much does having all of those people that have helped make Arizona football special in the building, How much do you think that has a direct impact on what we've seen on the field this year for Arizona State?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, you talk about just comfortability for them to go out and recruit guys from out of the state to say, hey, I know this area, I know this place, I know these people. You know, and I do think it's gonna pay huge in in-state recruiting. Winning has to come with that, and we're trying to do that right now, sitting at 7-2. So we're trying to make that push, but it's huge just for guys that have been around, you know, college and high school sports for so long. A lot of knowledge and a lot of knowledge of the Valley too. It's been awesome.
How much do they bring a recruit into your office and say, okay, so here's what this guy did. He played here, then he went to ASU, then he played for the Cardinals. How many times a day do you tell your story?
Especially during recruiting season, a lot. I just like to, especially to give parents kind of the comfortability of, I understand what your son's going through. I understand this transition he's going to make. And that's kind of part of my job now, working back at ASU, is just helping them transition from high school or from another institution to ASU to capitalize on their time here and then kind of preparing for what's next. Because I've lived it all and fairly recent. So I understand the emotions that come with it, but also understand what this Valley has to offer. Again, like we talked about, I'm still here. I'm still working in this community, and it's just a joy.
Well, I remember going over to your press conference where you announced where you're going to school, and I wouldn't say there was surprise it was ASU, but it definitely wasn't a done deal. Mm-hmm. So how did you come to the decision to go to ASU, and you remember just putting the hat on?
Yeah.
What was that?
I remember Coach Sanders, and then I had my cousin sitting right next to me. It really came down to family for me. That's what it really came down to, and it's funny how the ASU community has become family. That was the reason why I committed to them, to stay close to my family, and I wanted them, my mother, all my family, to be a part of this journey with me. I wasn't ready to leave. And then I found just this community, my friends, best friends, guys that weren't even from here, and just the fans. And just like I said, I can't stop talking about the community because that's what it's been for me throughout my 4 years there and, 10 years, almost 12 years removed now.
Is it really? Man,
I'm
old.
2012 to 15. So
Wow.
Yeah, it's been about that.
You look like you could still play, though.
I try to stay in shape just to keep these guys, to let them know, like, hey, don't mess around with me. I will strap up real quick, and we can get busy. So it's fun, though. It keeps me in the game. I love being around these guys. I've been around 18 to 23-year-olds, so I still have a lot of passion for this game. I mean, my last year was 2020 NFL, and 21 I played in the CFL. So I'm not that far removed from it. So I still have a lot of juice and passion about football, and I love talking ball and sports with them and just giving them the passion and just understanding what this looks like, what this next phase of. A lot of them have aspirations. They all do, but they got to understand what that looks like, how to get there, the work that goes into that.
All right, so take me back to, I remember going over to your first practice at ASU and thinking, oh, that's cool, he's on the team. Like, then you're like, I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play a lot. So how were you able to kind of, infiltrate the lineup and start making an impact? Because it seemed like you did pretty quick.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it helped me, and I owe a lot to Todd Graham. I was kind of his first signee in that class. Coach Dennis Erickson recruited me. Todd Graham got hired with Mike Norvell for about 4 months. They had to recruit me kind of around then to my commitment date. So I put a lot of trust in them, and in return, they put a lot of trust in me. So I was just blessed and honored. My biggest thing was just be consistent, learn the playbook. Let the coaches know that they can trust me. That's the hardest thing for a young guy to get on the field, and I tell our freshmen that. You want to play, you're already behind because just maturation, just your physical development, you're behind. So you have to be able to know the playbook. They have to be able to trust that when you go out there, you're going to do the correct things and make the plays. So that was my biggest concern freshman year, is just make the plays that came my way and know what I'm doing. Go the right way.
Is there a better recruiter than Todd Graham? And what's it like to go from being recruited by Todd Graham to now coached by Todd Graham?
Yeah, it was a transition, but I enjoyed my 4 years with Coach Graham. I really did.
I miss all this. He'd give you 10 sound bites. You're like, I can't use all of these.
It was never a dull moment. And he was passionate.
And Kenny's great.
Yeah.
But Todd Graham and Bruce Arians at the same time. I mean, like you had to be at every news conference.
Well, and it's crazy. I got coached by Bruce Arians when I went to the Cardinals too.
Wow.
So I experienced Bruce Arians. But yeah, Todd Graham was awesome. I owe him a lot. He definitely gave me a foundation of how to be a young professional, how to mature, understand how hard the game is. And I really do think he helped me transition to the NFL based off of just what he instilled in me at ASU. Going to New England, which a lot of guys, that's a tough place to go in as a rookie and adapt. But I felt like I already had a lot of those characteristics built up in me because of what Todd Graham did for me.
Do you find yourself talking like BA and Todd Graham? Do you bust out any of their sayings? Is there any Mike Norvell in there too? Like, you catch yourself talking like a coach?
Sometimes some of the former old teammates of mine will get our little Southern accent. Mike, what the hell are you doing? You know, we'll bust that out.
Jordan deputy, right?
Yeah. Jordan Simone was really good at it too. But yeah, I mean, shoot, Mike Norvell, Dan Lanning, Kenny Dillingham. I mean, those were all 3 on staff at one point. So you see the coaching tree Todd Graham had. So good, bad, whatever, you know, your feelings. I mean, he did a lot for this university. He was passionate, and he had a lot of great coaches around him and developed a lot of great people.
Yeah, clearly he could spot talent. I used to love when he would lose his voice.
Yeah.
We got to get him in here. He would lose his voice up at Camp T.
Yeah.
You know, at the second day, and he had the microphone. I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
it was such good TV. We
He's
had so
awesome.
much fun. Did you ever think Kenny Dillingham would end up being the head coach here? Like, what were your memories of Kenny?
It is crazy. I mean, he was your GA. He was, you know, running around, filling out papers, getting coffee, doing all those stuff. But I do remember just his passion. So I'm not surprised to see his journey. And did I know it was going to be back here? I'm sure he didn't even know it was going to be back here, you know, at his alma mater and home. But his passion was always there. So he was very smart. He understood the game. He understood people. So there's no shock in kind of his journey to this place. And it's been fun. I mean, seeing him get hired inspired me to get back in it. You know, I wouldn't be at ASU if it wasn't for him, you know, so that's the honest truth. So I'm very grateful for Kenny, and then just his inspiration of coming back to ASU. I wanted to be a part of it.
And when you talk to young men now, and there's so much more. I almost think, like, if you would have come out now, how much more would you be dealing with? You feel
It's
like?
crazy. You know, there's a lot, but I do still think there's still 18 to 23-year-olds trying to navigate this space. There's still young people that have the same problems. Granted, they have more resources, so helping them navigate that is important. And that's why I love my job, is just understanding what's what. You know, don't make that mistake. Go this way instead of going that way. But I do still am a big believer in football. Is why I love football. It teaches you a lot of life lessons. Good and bad. It's gonna wake you up. It's gonna let you know what you need to get better at, what you need to improve on. So it is unbelievable, though, the amount of resources and opportunities young people have, which is good.
Right.
Capitalize on it.
You might have had a car. I mean, I don't know how
I
your
could
car
have,
situation.
Instead, I had a Honda CRV with no AC for my first 2 years. So, yeah, let's just
As the
hope
Arizona State running back.
That's so now you know how times have changed. That I was a freshman All-American starting running back, but yet I had no AC in my car. So these guys definitely have. Now they got Mustangs. They're driving. So it's fun to watch them, and it's fun to see them that the problems they think they have no clue of what guys kind of laid the groundwork before them. And I'm sure older guys that played before me in college had different situations too. So it's fun to see it progress.
Have you thought about maybe bringing that car back as one of the cars available?
I should. I should put it so. I should. Whoever is the player of the week, the player of our MVP of the season. Here's a Honda CRV, one flat tire, no AC. Power steering's done, but good luck. Enjoy it.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so take me back to that freshman year, and things start happening. The All-American. What when you think back on that year? What were some of the moments where you were like, you know, I'm sure there was confidence coming in, but you're like, man, this really was a good decision to come to ASU.
Yeah, I just hit the ground running.
Literally.
And literally, but it was awesome. I mean, and big shout out to Coach Norvell. Mike Norvell did a great job just implementing me in his offense. You know, we had such an explosive offense those 3 years. You know, a 9-win season, 10-win. You know, to beat U of A that game. Just so many great memories as a freshman. A lot of really talented football players. Watching Will Sutton out there. So just to be a part of that culture and be a part of the shift. That's what I took from my freshman year, and like wanting to be the guy to motivate in the offseason to do it again as a sophomore.
How are there comparisons between the team now and the team then of shifting things and pointing things in a direction where it ignites the fan base, it activates the Valley? Y'all are kind of the last generation of Sun Devils to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think guys, you almost take a lot of pride in it. You take pride in trying to shift the culture. Especially now you have a lot more new faces than you did back then. You know, you have a lot more transfers. So getting a guy that has been at maybe another institution to come in here and to adapt real quick, it just shows you what our leaders on the team are, whether they've been here for 3 years, 2 years, or 6 months. Just shows you that guys are believing in Coach Dillingham's beliefs and his culture and what he's preaching.
What are the games that stick with you? I mean, I think about the Pac-12 championship game and the two long runs, and I mean, let's start there, because what was that like as a hometown kid? Just lighting Sun Devil Stadium on fire.
Oh, special. Even though that 3-game span, it was UCLA, Marion Grice got hurt. Then I ended up starting for the Territorial Cup. and I won MVP of that game. That was the moment that really shifted it for me. I was like, wow, this is kind of, I'm living my dream. This is happening. I was kind of a rotation guy in the slot, running back, kind of my first year and a half. But then that was my opportunity to play running back, which is what I love, which is who I am. So the U of A game, then going into the Pac-12 championship, it was special. Unfortunately, we fell short. But just to have that moment at Sun Devil Stadium at the time, it was a huge game. Seeing that stadium rocking like that, it was just so special. I'll never forget those moments, because it was just so important for the community to feel that again of like, hey, we can do this. We need your help. We're all one together, but we just all got to be on the same page.
Do you show the tape to any of the current kids of that? I mean, just to know, like,
Yeah.
okay, here's what it can look like. I think Charles Barkley was on the sidelines for those games. I mean, that was about as big as it gets, in my opinion, since I've been here.
It was huge. And it just shows you how many people are here from, celebrities, athletes. And I tell guys, like, the Valley is filled with a lot of people that are curious, but you got to give them something to be curious about. So that's kind of where our mindset is right now, just one game at a time. And that was kind of how we thought back then, like, hey, we took pride in putting on a show. We took pride in scoring a lot of points. We wanted the family, the fans in the Valley to feel, what ASU football is. So it was fun. It was a fun streak.
Was there a moment where you shifted from, like, big in kind of the football world to just walking around campus and all of a sudden, big man on campus, that's the star running back?
I yes and no. I think always because I played high school football here, like I always had connections to a lot of places and people, just knew a lot of people. But I had 4 roommates. Like, we did stuff differently back then. Now these guys have their penthouses, their apartments. They kind of live by themselves, which is different. I had 3 roommates.
Did y'all each have a car, or did they just use yours?
We all probably carpool. Yeah, we all rotated, would save on gas and stuff like that. So you talk about the different issues we had, but no, I've just always been in that space. I never felt like I was too big for this place. I've always felt like it was just for me. It was meant for me, and that's how I continue to feel today. Is just this Valley is exactly what I wanted, and I'm just glad that they, with the Legends Luncheon, I'm glad that they are proud of what I did, and I'm getting honored in that way. And again, I would never think of that when I committed, but I'm just honored and blessed.
Well, and you think about just the journey, and I also think about how close you guys got. I think about the Oregon State.
I know.
Jalen Strong, didn't he go out with a concussion in that game?
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, do you think this team gets in the BCS? Like, I mean, how could you taste it at that point?
Taste it. And those there's some brutal memories as well. As many good ones, there's some tough ones. To be number 6 team in the country, beat Notre Dame at home, which you talk about a game for.
Yeah, real quick, let's talk about that, because that was
Yeah.
one of the wildest games I've ever seen.
It was incredible. I mean, 2 top 10 teams, I believe, at the time, at noon in Sun Devil Stadium. I mean, some of those games are just storybook, and to have that game, to go get that win like that. But yeah, it was brutal going up to Corvallis. People call it a trap game, but I do think it was still a special season. It was special for a lot of us. It was special for the community to know that we're right there. We're right there as a fan base. We're right there as a community. We're right there to take that next step. And I feel like that's what Kenny's trying to, Coach Dillingham's trying to do right now.
And it's so hard to climb the mountain, but I mean, does it make you appreciate it even more, because it is so fleeting? I mean, it's gone in the blink of an eye in some cases, and to be a legend in that regard. I mean, how much do you think you have a daughter now? How much do you think she'll one day say, "Hey, Dad, will you throw on the tape?" Or you can borrow my computer. I have lots of
I'll bring her in studio and we can go through it. But it's fun. So I have a picture up in the building, which is cool. So I brought her by the other day and she was looking at it. So little moments like that. Again, 18-year-old me would never ever be able to predict that or guess that. So I'm just kind of living my dream, and it's surreal, and I'm just enjoying it. I'm just enjoying being back and kind of trying to help the next generation of Sun Devils and these guys to go make that push. It's a journey, like you said. Winning's hard, and staying on top's even harder. So we're just trying to just do work every day, build it one game at a time, and Coach Dillingham has done a great job at just one game at a time.
And so what specifically do you do now? Like, what's a day's work for you? When are you in the building? Are you in there working out 5 a.m. like Herm was, or anything like that? Or
no. So I mean, I'm there every day with the staff. I get in at 7. I leave at whenever the day's done. Kind of. Every season's different for me. Spring, we get a lot of recruits. So really, housing, academics, programming, really just bringing resources to our guys, really helping them again in this transition of life, whether they're coming here from another place or high school. I help with getting them all moved in. Any issues they have in life, I'm kind of their person they go to. Talk football when I can.
Was there like a class for that at ASU, or were you just always good at kind of like
I just think it's just life experience.
Yeah.
It's a great, not an easy job, but it's a job that fits because of what I just lived. So it's allowed me to come in and be able to talk and communicate to them. And I think there's a little bit of credibility because I just got done playing. So I think they can trust me a little bit when I tell them something like, hey, I've seen this happen before. You can do this, but this is what the results that I've seen in the past. So just helping them make the right decisions and just help them capitalize, because there's so many more resources like we talked about. Like, it'd be a shame to not leave here with a degree, not leave here with a good foundation because of how much stuff is offered to them.
Do you ever see yourself, is Kenny ever walking down the hall and you just like, can we just go talk some X's and O's, man? Or do you ever see yourself throwing on a headset or anything like that?
There's times that I think about it.
Yeah.
There is. The coaching life is different. I do ponder it sometimes, but I do right now. I'm close enough to the game where I'm getting everything I need from it. Who knows what the future holds, whether I want to put on a headset and go coach running back somewhere or, here. So I'm grateful to be in the position that I am. I think I'm learning because I've seen football and athletics from the player side. Now it's my time to see it. I'm seeing it from an administrator's, kind of a coaching perspective. So it's been fun to try to change lenses and learn a lot. So I'm just really soaking it up, all the information.
And you did some broadcasting after
Yeah.
you got back. I mean, first of all, just the NFL journey, the CFL journey. That was a lot of ups and downs. But what was it like playing for your hometown team, scoring a touchdown for Bill Belichick's Patriots?
Yeah.
And you have the ring.
I got
right?
a ring.
Where's the ring?
It's in a safety lockbox at the bank, so it stays there for the most part.
You ever bring it out for recruits?
You know what? I've brought it to our guys too. I've done some programming with them that I brought it out and kind of used it in a lesson that I was teaching them. So it's been fun for them to see it and look. I mean, shoot, we got Hines Ward now on staff too, and he bust out 3. I think he's got. Right. He wears his 3 around.
Does he really? Yes.
Yeah.
How much was he? Was he ever a guy that you played against, or did you?
No, I
ever...
missed him.
Yeah.
I think his last couple years were when I was still in college, but.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's always good to see NFL guys come back, and not every NFL former player can be a coach, but to see one that knows how to teach and relay the information that he has in his mind and what he has experienced, it's really cool to see, and he does a great job. He has a great job with just connecting to young people and being able to teach. He's a great teacher, and those receivers look up to him a lot.
All right, and who at this Legends Luncheon are you most looking forward to talking to, and what do you think are like the top stories that'll be told when you like? Is it you and like Simone or will Burko come back or?
I mean, it's a lot of Arizona high school guys, so we'll see who shows out. Again, I had a lot of teammates that played high school football out here, so I'm just excited to see some old faces. I don't know really who's gonna show up, so I'm hoping just to be surprised and just kind of reminisce with a lot of old faces, a lot of old teammates, and just people that have been around the community that have been a part of my journey.
Where were you on the field when Burko hit strong for the Jail
I was
Mary?
right in front, so the Hail Mary, the Jail Mary, Jalen went up, Cameron Smith was kind of the back end for the tip guy, and then I was for like the tip for forward. So I was kind of right in front. So if you watch the video, I'm the first one to tackle him and throw him to the ground. So I was right there just in case it was a tipped, but I just couldn't believe, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago to somebody, I couldn't believe, because I'm looking at Jalen make the kind of cut across the field and to see the confidence in his eyes, I'm like, no way. Like this isn't the way he was going up for, like it was just like a pitch and catch. So it was crazy. Surreal moment, another one of those memories out of those 4 years of just that you'll never forget.
Man, I feel like it was just yesterday. So
yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for coming in, making some time for us, and talking about this legendary career. And when you can find Cyrus Hobby, out in LA, and we can talk about his acting career. Bring some of your Saguaro teammates in here.
We will.
Let's walk down memory lane.
That would be awesome. They would love to reminisce. Appreciate you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks so much. So that was part 1 of our conversation with a Sun Devil legend leading up to the Legends Luncheon on Friday, November 22nd at the Omni Tempe Hotel. Part 2 with Nathan LaDuke, another hometown Sun Devil who grew up on the west side of Phoenix and starred in the Sun Devil secondary from 1987 to 1991. You're about to hang out with a lot of Sun Devil legends coming up here shortly. What's it like getting the entire Sun Devil family together?
Oh, I think it's great. I think that we all have, a lot in common. We've all kind of sacrificed the same things. We've kind of, bled together, sweated together, and I always feel great going back to a reunion. Generally, we're always telling stories that are probably a little bit exaggerated at that point, but I think that just overall, just the feeling that we've had for each other, it just gets better and better as time goes on, and so it's a great time.
And what's it like watching this year's team play the way they're playing, and just the general excitement around the program?
Well, you use the word, it's exciting. I mean, Coach Dillingham came in and he was very hyped up, and then the first year, it was tough, but he's kind of living up to what he said he was going to do, and they're playing exciting football. It's interesting. I don't know that there's like a true identity of this new conference yet, and it is. I do miss the Pac-10, Pac-12.
Right.
I miss the coastal teams, the USCs, the UCLAs, the Oregons, the Washingtons, and so I think that at some point in the next few years, the Big 12 will kind of maybe have a few teams identify themselves as the USCs, and maybe one of them will be ASU, hopefully.
And that's sort of been the I don't know. This is going back to when you came to school here, and you certainly were there. Is it rose up, but that whole sleeping giant thing. And Kenny's talked openly about it. What has been the key to getting the program to take off? And are there any similarities between when you were here that you can kind of feel, and then and what's happening now?
Well, I mean, to be quite truthful with you, the 4 years that I was here, I think that we were probably about a game over 500 as a total record.
Wow.
We had some incredible players.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and we still really enjoyed incredible attendance. There was usually 75,000 people just about in every game. At least it sure seemed that way. So we had tremendous support, but it's just different. I think that now everything has changed with NIL, with the portal, and I still don't really have a full comprehension of how all the specifics work with that. But I think what Coach Dillingham has done is he's put together a pretty great coaching staff. He's got a lot of good assistants. They have a lot of good recruiting ties. They've done remarkably well in the portal to this point, especially, I think, and I don't know all the facts, but just what I hear, they don't have the most money. And they're not out there like Ohio State with a $20 million budget currently. And I think that that's what we're working towards. But they've done a pretty great job of going out. And obviously a guy like Scadabo, right? You pull him from a smaller school and give him the chance to come to a Power 5 conference, and then he's going to stay here. Those are the type of guys that you have to go find. And they want to elevate their stock in their life and potentially go to the NFL. And they're coming from smaller places where they probably wouldn't be able to have as good a chance to elevate themselves in the NFL. And I just think they've done a great job there, and they've got the right kind of guys. I would like to say that so I volunteer coach at American Leadership Academy, Queen Creek, and I feel like that's why we do so well, is we have the right kind of players. They're not necessarily pound for pound the best athletes compared to a lot of the 6A teams that we're playing. But the majority of the time, they make the right decisions on each play. And so out of 11 guys on defense, probably 9 to 10 to maybe 11 are all doing the right thing. And so they work more in cohesion. And I kind of feel like that's what Kenny's got going on here. He's got a bunch of guys that like each other, that play together, that don't make a lot of mistakes, and in the right times, they're capitalizing on it.
All right, I want to hit the pause button if we can on the Legends Luncheon, because I actually have a couple questions about ALA Queen Creek.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a high school football halftime show,
perfect.
and
Let's do it.
a show every night. So, okay, open division. I mean, this has been it's kind of the thing, each year. Like, does some of the, and I don't know that I would classify you as a smaller school.
Oh, we're tiny.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many kids go to school there?
So high school kids, 1,000 kids.
Okay. Yeah. So yes, we're
basically
a
3A school.
Queen Creek seems like there's like 5 million people out
well,
there.
There are in Queen Creek, and I mean it's growing every second, and it's horrible. And they did a horrible job of designing that Ellsworth loop. But luckily, I live in Gilbert.
Okay, smart. Veteran move. Veteran move. And that was way out back when you probably moved out there.
But we're involved in all of the football, which is out there in Queen Creek and all these places. So I mean, we're caught in traffic half our lives. It's kind of like L.A. almost. Like anyway. It's a great
olive
place.
oil out there, though.
Yeah. Great olive oil. Yeah, that's
awesome.
Right.
So when it comes to just how that program has been built and getting into the open division, and I don't think you've been shy about wanting to be in, but there's always do we go for a state championship in our classification? Do we try to get in the open? What does it mean to get in the open, and what's the path to victory there?
Well, I feel like so this is my 4th year. So when I first started, and Ty Detmer was the head coach there, we've done well every year, and we were in the open, and we played against Hamilton.
Right.
And that was quite a feat, because we we didn't quite match up with them. And it's like David versus Goliath. We show up, and Hamilton's got like 110 kids dressed and on the sideline, and like which probably includes their JV. But they're all big, and they all,
right.
they look impressive. And here we are, even if we put together our varsity and JV, we got 45 guys or something, maybe 50. And so at 4A, at that point, that was tough, especially against Hamilton. And then I think that what's happened is we've had the opportunity as a coaching staff to kind of infiltrate Santan Youth Football League. And in the beginning, we kind of had one of the franchises where everyone was entrenched, and they were called the Blue Devils. And then as time has gone on, there's 8 franchises in this youth football league.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of entrenched in about 4 of them. And so I know people always say we recruit, and we don't really recruit. We just get involved, and kids will go where they feel like good things are happening. And that's what's happening out at ALA Queen Creek. And so the spillover from our coaches working at the high school also then goes into the youth league. So we're starting to get them younger, and we really we don't have as sophisticated offense and defense, but we kind of have the general things at an early age. And so they're starting to learn our schemes essentially when they're, my son's 11, he's a 5th grader, and he's already being exposed a little bit to our schemes. And so I have another son who's a freshman, and that freshman class came out of the Buckeyes franchise. They're incredible. There's more athletes there than we've ever seen. So we think that when our freshmen this year, they just finished undefeated, when they're seniors and this 8th grade crew are juniors, we feel like the Open we should win it. Yeah. Now, this year hasn't gone away yet, so we still feel confident that we can compete. But I just think that we're getting stronger and stronger because we've infiltrated into that youth league. And that's kind of what Liberty and Centennial have done over there in Peoria. They've formed that youth league, and they just feed themselves with it. So that's how we do well with 1,000 kids in our high school. And we also, I've said it before to some people, and this is just my own opinion. I don't know that this is exactly true. We have the right kind of kids that are being parented well. So then when they come on the football field, they take coaching, and then they try really hard for us. And they're also, don't let me criticize them. They're good athletes. Okay, we don't have a lot of guys. We don't have any guys going to D1 Power 5 conferences. Nobody's getting scholarships. We have one guy this year who's done really well, and they probably should look at him, but he just doesn't fit the metrics of it. So he's going to Idaho, and that's our really only scholarship guy on the whole team. He's an inside linebacker named Brody Michaels, and he's a great athlete, and he runs track. And anyway, but we have the right kind of kid, and so that's what allows us to do really well. I mean, it allows us to go out onto the field against Mountain Point, who has 5 guys going D1, and in the last 2 years, Mountain Point hasn't scored a point against us, which is kind of mind-boggling.
Right.
Because when you go and you step on the field, I remember last year, and specifically they had 2 running backs that one was going to University of Texas and the other was going somewhere else, and I don't remember all their names, but anyway, when you step on the field, and that's kind of I think one of the gifts that I've been given, I'm able to just watch people and determine if they're athletic or not. These are dudes on Mountain Point's team. Like, these are dudes. These are like
dude. You just point, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
Like these are like in my mind, it looks like that's a junior in college. Look at this immature muscles that he has. I mean, that's a man right there. That's not a high school kid. And somehow we still do it. We just have our kids on defense fly around, and they give such great effort. It's awesome. And last week was the cherry on top of it all. We played Queen Creek, which we've never really considered our rival, but because we share the town with them, it's become kind of a heated thing. And we've also been the recipient of some of their transfers. Yeah. So they hate us bad, and we played them pretty much perfect. We had the highlight. In fact, we were going to go get the Ben Franklin game too, and it was like, I don't think you're going to be able to park at this game. And the photographer pulled up and was like, "Yep, there's no parking at this game." So the whole town was there. Yeah, and it was heated, and it was but it was great. I mean, I think that's the most fun I've had in 4 years coaching. Just because the feeling that we all had as coaches was that we had such great effort from our kids, and they made so few mistakes. They just, in the first half on defense, we only played 19 plays.
Wow.
And that, I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So,
well, okay. So take me back to your high school days, and you said it had to start somewhere with your linebacker and being kind of a local kid that goes to ASU. Was that the path? Was that the dream? Like how much did you consider playing in front of 75,000 people at Sun Devil Stadium, now Mountain America Stadium, growing up?
I never considered it. I wasn't. I mean, we didn't have any money, so I wasn't going to any football games. I was just. My dad was unique. He was kind of like, I don't know if you remember the story about Todd Marinovich.
Yeah.
And his dad. And his dad was kind of, at least had, the story was that Todd Marinovich didn't eat any Big Macs, and he was like the RoboCop.
Right.
The Robo quarterback.
Robo QB, yep.
So I don't want to say my dad was that radical, but he might have been a little radical. Like, so my older brother and I were working out when we were 5 years old, and we were doing pull-ups and push-ups and squats, and we were doing this multiple times a week, and it was very consistent, and it wasn't like a joke. Like, these were legitimate hard workouts. I mean, so when we were both in the 5th and 6th grade, luckily my brother went first, but he did in the physical fitness test. It was the day for pull-ups, and so he did 25 pull-ups as a 5th grader, and I found out that he did that, and so I did 26. So that's how much work we were putting in.
And then did he do 27?
Yeah, well, no, unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to come back on that. But that's the kind of work we were putting in.
Yeah.
Like, we were putting in so much work that we could do that many pull-ups. As as my son right now is 11, and I'm not that radical, so I haven't made him train like that. But
do you know how many pull-ups he can do though?
Well, I call him pretty twitchy. Like, he's like a little muscle. So just on his own, without even doing anything, he probably can do 8. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's probably more than I can do right now. So, yeah.
So anyway, it started a long time ago. Like, just for me, the whole preparation to becoming a good athlete started really early. Thousands and thousands of hours were put into it. I didn't ever really have like a team that I was rooting for, because I just think that we were just constantly training and competing, whether it was football or baseball or wrestling. It was just year-round, nonstop. So I wasn't an ASU fan per se. But then when I became a junior in high school and I started getting recruited, that was an eye-opening experience, and it was cool. And ASU was one of them. And ultimately, there was a guy named Don Bakke. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah. Yep.
So Coach Bakke was the guy who came into the Phoenix Union District. He's the one who, put on the belt and suspenders, and he did the hard work to find all the guys out of there, the Darren Woodsons, the Felipe Sparks, Kevin Minifield, Kevin Galbraith, myself, whatever. Like, we were kind of, in this, I guess, for lack of a better word, slummy area, and he found us, and he went above and beyond. Like, I remember him coming to one of my wrestling tournaments, the Peoria wrestling tournament, and he was walking around. He told me at a later date, he was having conversations with just random people, and he was asking them questions about me just to see what their response was, just to see what kind of character I have. He wanted to find out if there's anything bad that somebody would say about, the people that he recruited. So that type of stuff doesn't go on now, because everyone's, subscribing to a third-party service.
Right. They have handlers, and the handlers have handlers.
They give these star ratings, and I don't even know if they've ever even seen these guys.
Right.
So it's a little bit different these days. And I don't know that, I don't know that the football quality has improved for sure, but certainly the guys out on the field, they look really good, because their height and their weight, it's pretty good. They're aesthetically very pleasing.
Could you make it through, say, a half without getting a penalty for unnecessary roughness if you were playing in today's game?
Oh, gosh. Probably not. Well, because we were taught to lead with our head.
Right.
And so I used my head as a battering ram, and it was a huge lever arm for me. And, if you have your neck, back and your shoulders kind of clenched and your traps flexed, this is a super powerful weapon, really.
Right.
And then then you wrap with it, and it's a lever arm. So I would have to totally kind of change the way that I played, because I'm sure that I would have way too many head-to-head things.
How do you teach tackling now? Is it kind of twist and pull?
No, I still try and teach them head across the body.
Because my kids do that too, and it's still like head, but it's very.
I think that your head has to go across the body. Otherwise, if you find yourself with your head separated from them, now you stand the chance of injuring your shoulder.
Right. Yeah.
Sticking your arm out or something, and just not that many people are that strong to be able to catch somebody running and be able to stop them without an injury. So you've got to get your head and your body across. I think it's unfortunate that your head is attached to your shoulders, and there's not that much room there. So if you lead with your shoulder and your head has any contact, these guys are getting flagged oftentimes when it's not a flagrant foul.
Right.
Like, you have to have some acknowledgement that your head is only a few inches away from your shoulders, right?
Right.
So I don't know. And it's really difficult, especially when you go up in levels, the physicality of these running backs or whoever you're tackling, a receiver,
Who is the toughest guy you ever tackled?
I think that it was the running back out of Washington State. His last name was Broussard.
Oh yeah, Steve. He played for the
Broussard.
Saints, didn't he? Yeah.
He was a little, a little Barry Sanders like.
Yeah.
Like very explosive, kind of had that kind of shuffle hop kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And was smooth and fast and strong.
Yeah.
So probably him. And then, there was a guy named Napoleon Kaufman at Washington who was really fast.
Yeah.
Right? And
was that just like pick a point and hopefully he's there?
Yeah. I mean, you just had to like kind of calculate and go, all right, I got to go this angle and hopefully I'll intercept him.
Right. Well, that's a veteran's perspective right there. You did have, tackling, hard hitting. That's kind of what your calling card was, it seemed. But there were some pretty big interceptions for touchdowns as well. When you lie awake at night, can you still hear the cheers?
Oh, I don't reminisce often, but when I do, I'd probably have a huge smile on my face. The one that I think everyone remembers is it was against Colorado State, and it was like in the fourth quarter. It was like a 15-play drive, and it's 105 degrees still at 7 o'clock at night, right? And we're all getting tired, and I can't remember who their quarterback was, but he throws a kind of a little bit of a weak pass over kind of on the hash, and I was playing free safety. I cut it off and catch it, and they always taught us to, once you make an interception, get to the sideline, so in case you get hit and fumble, you can just it goes out of bounds.
Interesting.
Right?
Do they still teach? Do you still teach that?
Probably not as much these days. We kind of just say, just get after it and get what you can, right?
Right.
But and I think our coaching staff was fairly conservative, and so I got to the sideline, and in my mind I said, forget that. I'm not going to stay on the sideline. I'm going to make something happen. So I cut, and I'm dying, by the way, as I get to the sideline. My heart rate's probably going 200 already. I cut back across the field 90 degrees, and I think I even started losing ground, but the wall sets up, and I think that I remember the last guy, I think it was Brett Wallerstedt, who laid this guy out. And now, in today's game, that's totally illegal, right?
Right.
But it's like a decleated, feet up in the air. And the next day we watched that 100 times and just were loving it. So then once I got past that, it was basically home free. And Darren Woodson and Kevin Minifield were right there at midfield. And we just ran in as like a convoy all the way. And they're like literally helping me. And then I fall in the end zone and they fall on top of me. And I'm
Were you like, get off of me?
Get off, I can't breathe. I said, get off me. And I was so tired that I normally was holding for the extra points. I'm like, I got to go. Like, so Adam Brass came in to hold. And I went over to the sidelines, and I just remember, like, I threw a cup of water into the student section or whatever it was, and the thing was going nuts. That's probably, like, the most elated I think I've felt in a long, long time. So
well, you think about just all the work it took to have that moment.
Yeah.
What was and how much do you tell kids that you're coaching maybe you'll get that moment, maybe you don't. How do you kind of say commit to the process, and then when they have a moment like that, how much do you celebrate it?
Well, I mean, certainly when they have good games and they're doing what they're coached to do, we reward them, in a big way. Like, I'll give hugs, and I mean, I'm having the whole defense over and making them waffles on Saturday night, and just different things like that, just to build that camaraderie and team unity. And but I mean, it's that's a hard one to really even explain. I think that we do our best to celebrate the good things that happen and make these guys feel really good about themselves.
And how much did that Sun Devil team, the guys laying in the end zone with you, how much do you feel like that moment, that crew, that group kind of lay a foundation for even the current Sun Devil team to build on?
Well, I mean, I would like to think and hope that there was something laid there that carries on. I don't know exactly, because with every regime, it's just everybody has a different style, and I think that based on what era you're in, there's also different types of players. So I don't know. I like to think, and I know that, and it might be cliche at times when, and we're probably going to go back and at this Legends thing, I'm sure something like that's going to be said, right? And we all will appreciate it a lot, and it makes you feel really good. To the extent that it really matters now, I don't know. I think that everybody kind of finds their own way and has their own thing. I don't think that. Well, I know these guys aren't thinking about what happened before them. I mean, I don't think about my genealogy very often. Only once in a great while do you think about, the people before you and what they did to sacrifice and anything that, it has to be kind of really brought to your attention. I don't know if any generation is that introspective or has that type of gratitude. So I don't think that it's happening consciously with these guys all the time. And I know it will be said, at this Legends Luncheon that, we helped build something. And I feel like we did. I mean, I feel like everybody is doing it whether it was in the past or moving forward. It's just you pass it on to the next guy, and then you just root for him.
Well, and you got to play for your hometown team, and not many people get to do that. You also got to play for your hometown pro team as well. So
I mean, I got to play. I got to experience a couple camps.
Yeah, well, hey, you got to put on the. But
yeah,
I mean, that whole experience, and it's
yeah.
What was that whole thing like going basically from campus to your first job out of college?
Yeah,
was playing for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I guess there's a part of me that thinks that I was lucky to be able to do that, and it could have been really great, even better, I felt like if I had made it, then probably could eventually capitalize on that down the road somehow, in the professional NIL way or whatever. But I mean, I learned so much from all of that, and it's kind of been the foundation of my life and who I am now and where I am now. So I'm super grateful for those experiences. They made me tough. They made me, I mean, they make you tough. Like, I was actually speaking to a group the other day and kind of telling them the story about camp, and an NFL training camp is tough. Like,
what was it like back then? Are we talking like
it's just a matter
hitting
of
all day, every day for weeks at a time?
Yeah, so we had 2-a-day practices for 5 weeks, full pads with the Cardinals. And it wasn't like that with every NFL camp, but it was for us at that time. The Cardinals were not a great organization and, have struggled over the years, and I think that now are getting better and better. But it's just tough. Like, when you have 100 essentially alpha males that are fighting for 53 spots, it's not friendly,
Yeah.
And I can remember getting in fights, quite often.
Did you ever get into one with Wolfley?
No, I love Ron. Ron is the best. But I used to get in fights with Larry Centers, and it wasn't like we even didn't like each other. I don't know, maybe Larry doesn't like me, but whatever. I don't think that was the case. It's just how it goes, right? You're trying to make a team, you're trying to make a mark, and you end up shoving each other a little bit after the whistle back and forth, and so then you start fighting. It's just how it goes.
It's football, right?
It's football.
Yeah.
And the locker rooms are just interesting. There's not a lot of love. It's everyone's battling against each other for a spot. This is a livelihood. And so anyway, that experience I think has really helped me gain a toughness where anything that happens to me now or since in life is really just not that big a deal.
Right.
And I know my wife hates when I say that, but it's really not.
Right. Yeah. Go through a couple NFL training camps. That will certainly toughen anybody.
It'll toughen you up. Yeah.
Maybe not now. Maybe it's not.
I still think
cupcake. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I still think that it's a tough environment.
Sure.
For somebody who's there's a handful of those guys, more than a handful. I mean, there's probably legitimately 45 guys that aren't they're secure roster spots, right?
Yeah.
So they're cruising.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's another 50 guys that are fighting for.
You can
spots.
feel that when you walk in the locker room too.
Yeah.
And people are like, I could not be here tomorrow. So
yeah.
What allowed you to kind of break through at ASU? What was was there a time where you were kind of on the bubble there and had to,
No, I was super fortunate, and I told this story just the other day, but our defensive back class that came in that year was fairly highly touted, and there was myself and Floyd Fields and a guy named Jimmy Watkins out of Kansas and Eric Crawford out of Northern California, and so we all traveled, I think, to the first 2 games. There was Illinois, and then it might have been Pacific or something like that. Anyway, we dressed and we're ready to go, and we didn't get called upon in either of those games. And so it was determined at that point that we would all redshirt. So the 3rd game was Nebraska, and it was a national TV game, and it was a Keith Jackson, it was ABC, noon, right? It's a big one, 75,000 people at ASU Stadium. That's back when Steve Taylor is the quarterback, Keith Jones is Nebraska is back in their heyday.
When
right?
Nebraska was Nebraska.
I think they were number 2 at the time, and probably Oklahoma was probably 1.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal, and I was sitting on the sideline. I was dressed. I had my pads on, and I didn't have my ankles taped, and I didn't have my mouthpiece in, or I didn't have a mouthpiece because I was redshirting, and so my helmet was over on the side. And in the span of, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 series, 2 different defensive backs went down with season-ending injuries. And so Pat Henderson was the defensive back coach at the time, and he's up in the booth, and he calls down to the player phone. It's ringing. Somebody picks it up, and he's like, "Get LaDuke on the phone. Get LaDuke on the phone." And so I go get on the phone, and it is so loud. I can't hardly hear anything, but I can just make out a little bit. And he's yelling. He's screaming, "Okay, you've never played this before, but it's exactly opposite of strong safety. You just go to the other side and do the same thing." And so
against Nebraska,
national TV. Just think about all of the stuff. I don't have ankles taped. I don't have a mouthpiece.
Did you get your ankles taped, or did you play?
No.
Where'd you find a mouthpiece?
My roommate went down and got one that wasn't molded. I just stuck it in the side, and I was like,
he wasn't like, here.
No. He was redshirting as well. Scott Woodford.
So what was that conversation like? Hey, dude, you gotta get.
He's like, here's a mouthpiece, and he's like, just stick it in. I'm like, I stick it in, and it's that hard plastic, and
right?
Anyway, whatever. It's like I'm almost gagging on it. I jog out there, and at this point in my life, I've never been drunk or stoned. And I felt like as I was jogging out there, I was stoned. Like it was euphoric, but in a way that was, it was hard. It was like uncontrollable. Like I was like so nervous, and like legs heavy, heart rate going like crazy. Couldn't hear anything because of the fans are cheering, but was like in a haze almost. And so I go to get in the huddle, and I'm not gonna expose anybody, but.
Yeah,
one of our players came out to the edge of the huddle and he said, "Get out of here. Get back there. You haven't earned your way in here."
Against Nebraska.
And so I was like, "Whoa." And I go stand like 5 yards behind the huddle, and then I just find the strong safety, and I go to the other side.
What was the score at this point?
It's touchdown for touchdown. The game ended up 35-28. They beat us, but it was back and forth. It was like.
So, and were you just coming up and trying to stop the option? Was it just straight downhill?
I went in, and it was 3rd and long. It was like 3rd and 7, and so we were playing in a zone, like a cover 3 zone, and so I was a nickelback, and I basically had a curl flat, and so I dropped to my zone, and I'm like, my legs are heavy, and I feel like I'm just like cement planted. I have so much adrenaline. They throw a route right in front of me, and I had so much adrenaline that I knocked him back like 5 yards. I exploded into him, and like uncontrollably. I was just lucky. I mean, it's honestly like I felt like, you know, God's watching over me here. Like, boom, and he was short of the first down. And so then I go.
Did Keith Jackson? We got to go check tape. LaDuke on this.
I'm not sure what he did. Yeah, whoa, Nelly.
Yeah.
So I go run back, and then on the next series I go run out there on third down again, and the guy who had kicked me out before welcomed me back in.
You can stay.
Yeah,
good hit.
I earned my way in. So. And then after that, I basically kind of played from that point forward. So it was like the third game of my true freshman year that I got thrown in, and then I just stayed in from that point forward. And so that's how it worked out for me. It was you know, a little lucky, and I like to tell people I had prepared for this though my whole life. Like you know, all the work that I had done, and then you know, even the specific work when we came to campus as the 4 you know freshman defensive back. We were there 2 weeks before camp, and I just always took everything really seriously. Everything meant a lot to me. So I worked hard and I put the work in, and so I was ready. Even though I didn't specifically exactly know what to do, I knew enough to where I wasn't lost, you know, out there. So I was prepared. So it's just kind of a lesson to, you know, being prepared. And we actually try and teach our kids, especially when they're not taking reps, to take mental reps when you're out and just visualize as you're watching the scout offense and the quarterback drop back. Visualize that you're backpedaling, that you're seeing him, and then you're anticipating, and it works, taking the mental reps, but it takes effort, and you know, it's not that fun. Football is not really that fun of a game to practice. It's not like basketball or golf where you get instant reward. You hit a good shot or you shoot a ball and you get instant feedback. You could be doing things that don't really amount to much for all day. And as a defender, especially, what does it yield you? Right. It may not yield you much of anything.
Might not show for 2 months.
But then when it counts, it shows, right? And it might count for a win at that point. So it's like you have to be a little bit more disciplined, a little bit more committed, and a little more prepared, you know. So, but that's kind of what we try and teach our guys, and so that stuff has worked for me, and it's worked in my professional life and personal life, and anyway, just good principles.
Last one for you, and we'll let you get out of here. And I love asking guys this question. What sort of emotions does Red, White, and Blue A drudge up inside of you?
Red, White, and Blue A?
Yeah. Down south, maybe like a
I'm like
I was like not ALA Queen Creek. Sorry. The Wildcats logo.
I guess as I've gotten older, I mean, I would say that my hatred for them when I was playing was really, really high. And then as I'm getting older, I'm getting softer.
Me too.
Hopefully nobody gets offended for me saying this. Yeah. I'm not rooting for them per se.
Yeah.
But like I don't overtly hate them. And in fact, I mean, in some cases, I probably would actually root for them as an Arizona school over rooting for somebody else. But obviously, when we're playing them, yeah, I mean, there's, you know, I just have a horrible record against them, and so I don't really have any. I got nothing to stand on.
Well, what are you thinking? I mean, this could be a year that the Sun Devils go down to Tucson and have a celebration. Now, you don't want to, you know, there could be injuries. Yeah. Scatterboo could not be back this week. Yeah. But I mean, this is a lot of fun. How much do you feel like? At least I feel like the next couple games here could really ignite Arizona State and launch them into one of those programs we're talking about, trying to solidify themselves as one of the top tier of the Big 12.
I think each one of them is a huge stepping stone to the next one, right? You got K-State here, who I think at the beginning of the year, they're probably putting them at the upper echelon of this conference. And, you know, you've watched them perform, and sometimes they look really good, and sometimes they don't look that good at all. But I'm sure we're going to get their best effort, right? Then I think the next game is even more intriguing.
This is going to be a very interesting stadium, don't you think?
I think it's going to be unbelievable because obviously the population of LDS people in town, and it's going to be, I don't know if it'll be half, but it'll be close to half full.
Right.
And then it's a reuniting of an old WAC rivalry, right? BYU and ASU back in the WAC days, 70s when Cush was here. And then on top of that, I'm assuming, well, I don't know if BYU will win this next week or not, but it could possibly mean, the conference championship, right? I mean,
Which, who would have thought that not even 2 years into Kenny Dillingham?
Oh, I think it's great.
Like what
and
makes
let's not get ahead of ourselves because we got to go one step at a time.
But what has made
right?
him able to take basically a program that was not? I mean, it was I wouldn't say shambles, but it was pretty darn close to maybe playing for a conference championship next week.
I think he's got great energy. I think what I said earlier. I think he has a tremendous coaching staff. I really think that those guys are great recruiters, and I think that I don't know if there's a pure science to this portal. You just evaluate as well as you can guys that have put themselves in the portal and that are expressing some interest coming your way. And I just think that whatever they've done to get the crew that they have there, I don't know if it's if that's a formula that they have or if it's just a little bit of luck and a formula or whatever, but they've got the right cohesiveness and they've got guys that are committed and like each other and I think are maybe more likely to stay around for a few years as opposed to, all right, I'm going to go here and then I'm going to jump to here and I'm going to keep trying to get a bigger deal. And so maybe they've, consciously found the right guys and maybe there is a formula. I'm not in their meetings and I don't know exactly.
Yeah, that's another thing you can feel. You can feel it when you walk in.
Well, you can just tell.
It's a genuineness.
Well, you can just feel that they like each other.
Right.
Like you can just tell, and that makes up for a lot. I mean, football is much more than just a collection of the 11 best or the 22 best athletes on the field. You could have, and we're a testament of that at ALA Queen Creek.
Yeah.
We very seldom have the best 11 athletes on the field, but we win. We've won almost 40 games in the last 4 years, which it's ridiculous. It's mind-boggling. But that just shows you that there's so many other things that factor into football than just how good you physically look.
Right.
It's so much more. And we could go on and talk for hours about it, But I think that they have that. Whatever that is, whatever that little magical, the intangible type of things, they got a lot of it, and it's gelling together, and it appears that they're gaining more confidence each week, and that makes sense. As you continue to win close games, you get more confidence in what you're doing, and that what you're doing out there on the practice field is the right thing to be doing, and then your love and your commitment to put greater effort out each game. It takes a ton of courage to put tons of effort out, because if you put maximum amount of effort out and then you don't win, then you got to kind of face yourself, crap, man, that stinks.
Yeah.
Now I'm a little bit afraid to do that. So it takes a little bit of courage to be able to really put yourself out there and give all you have within the schemes and staying disciplined. It's a tougher thing than what you might think is going on out there. So it's pretty cool to watch. And so whatever formula that they've got going on, it's working.
All right, I know I said leave me with this with Arizona, but leave me with this.
Okay.
Stories. What stories are you most looking forward to telling at this Legends Luncheon? Who are the people you're looking forward to seeing? Give me one or two of your best ones.
Well, I wish that all my teammates would come back, like the ones that are eligible. Kevin Minifield is going to be there, and Kevin's one of my favorite teammates of all time, and I talk to Kevin often, so I'll be happy to see him there. I wish Darren Woodson would be back, and I wish Felipe would be back. I competed against all those guys we all competed against each other in our youth, and then ultimately ended up coming together at ASU, and that was a pretty cool thing. And I think that as time goes on, it actually gets more cool and more special. And I mean, like Bob Brunig, he went to my high school. He's an Alhambra Lion.
Yeah.
And that's where I went. And Bob's an incredible guy, and obviously had tremendous success with the Cowboys and at ASU and Alhambra. And it'll be great to see him. It'll be great. It's gonna be great to see everybody. I just think that we'll all have such fond feelings about each other, because again, we have this common thing that we've all done, right? We've all kind of sacrificed to try and win for this university, and some have done it better than others, but it ultimately, like I told somebody the other day, if you went through the 4 years of games, I don't think that I could even tell you whether we won or lost each game. I wouldn't be accurate in it, because it doesn't really matter to me anymore. And so somehow, and I've got a small capacity in there, so some of the stuff has to get kicked out after time.
There's only so much space on the
when
on the
something
disc.
new comes in, I got to kick that stuff out.
Yep.
So I just think that those things, when you get older, all you really remember is kind of your relationships in the locker room and just the fondness that you have. And I think your fondness grows over time. So I'm just excited to kind of go there, and we can all just love each other and tell fake stories and talk about how great we were, and we really weren't that great. All that good stuff.
Well, I think the video says otherwise, and this is a great conversation, so thank you for coming in.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
For information on how to attend the Legends Luncheon, scan the QR code on your screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, go to thesundevils.com website for more information on how to buy tickets. The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.